Hey, Wayne. Hi, Brad. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedules. I understand you guys were in Colorado a couple of weeks ago for the EDUCAUSE conference and had a chance to talk to a lot of people across the industry, both in higher ed and in ed tech. Love to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves, talk about your role here at Infinitive and your experience.
No, thanks, Christina. So I'm Wayne Campagna. I'm our client service lead in our education market. I lead a lot of our education clients and our accounts. This has been my third or fourth time at EDUCAUSE. I'll say that this time around, there was just a lot of energy and buzz, and the collaboration and excitement about what technology can do to solve a lot of the problems it was very evident, there today, a couple weeks ago.
Well, hey, Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Brad Sheridan. I'm the director of data analytics for Infinitive. This was my first time at an EDUCAUSE conference, and I echo what Wayne just said. There was a ton of energy. But, I've been to the conferences that are this size, much larger, much smaller, usually tech focused, just because of my background. And this one was very, very different. I can't wait to talk about it and share.
So thanks, guys, for sharing that insight about what you had learned about and what's really sort of the pain points for the industry. What did you learn that's going on that we can take back to our clients and help them, be successful and improve their business and their customer experiences?
I think one of the things, and Brad probably knows this too, is I feel like COVID was both a curse and a blessing. It definitely created a lot of havoc in the industry, but I think it forced a lot of changes to the way that it's always been done for a lot of these organizations faster than they planned. And, I think that it accelerated a lot of changes, but at the same time, they didn't have the time to really do the strategy and planning around some of these changes that they had to immediately put in place. It's really kind of how do you operationalize that change? How now do you take a step back and come up with your data strategy or your cloud journey and start putting in place what you need to do to take where you are to tackle some of these challenges and create a way to make data kind of a superpower for you.
Perhaps there was maybe in higher ed in general, there's more of a hesitation in getting started with the cloud journey. But Wayne's exactly right. This COVID particularly accelerated it. And what it showed was that first step is all that's really needed to show that what seemed to be really impossible is actually very, very feasible. I picked up on that several times at the conference.
Yeah, and taking that first step, it's incremental change. I think that sometimes we get locked into, going to these conferences and seeing these awesome things that maybe a different company or organization are doing. You're like, there's no way I can get there. But taking those incremental change and thinking about how do I keep the student in the center? How do I keep the entire organization and university around? And then how do you create data as like a foundation to that change? And taking those initial steps, you'll be surprised at how far you can get, step by step, rather than trying to, get to the last step immediately.
To piggyback on that, I heard a lot of times the term fail fast, and that's what they were able to do, right? Go into the cloud, spin up infrastructure quickly and easily, as opposed to having it on-prem and racking and stacking it, and being able to test a hypothesis, a use case, will this work for my use case? And being able to get that answer quickly or fail fast quickly, capture the metrics, how long something took, what it cost. And I heard that several times.
Interesting. So, taking into consideration some of these factors that the industry is coming up against that they have no control over, right? Like a global pandemic. How have we helped our client organizations solve for these kinds of challenges in the past?
Yeah, I mean, at Infinitive, we kind of tackle it from a transformation side and a technology side, and they kind of work off each other. And at one point, we have to kind of focus on making sure that we're balancing measurable outcomes. And measurable outcomes in higher ed, it's around both the student and the university. And how do you make sure you have measurable outcomes for every initiative? And that's why data is so critical. Like, are we reaching the right candidates at the right time? Are we actually decreasing or going to increase operational costs? And how do we improve our graduation rates? So that's kind of the lens we take with a lot of our projects at Infinitive, is just make sure we have those tangible, measurable outcomes. Because once you can prove that, it's very easy to get the buy-in throughout the organization and get the funding you need to start making the change that's required.
Well, and of course, at Infinitive, we also work with some ed tech companies, right, who are, really probably quickening their pace at bringing things to market, knowing that these higher ed institutions are facing some of these challenges. So, Brad, from your perspective, from a technical on the ed tech groups that we work with, what have we been doing?
Yeah, I did a project for an ed tech in early 2020. It's funny because I was on site with them for the first 2 weeks, and the following Monday, the world had shut down. So everything was remote. But so this was their DEI initiative that we were going to solve. It was just pre-pandemic. And they were somewhat in the cloud already. But what we were able to do is pull together all of their data into one place and enrich it with third-party data. I can get to that in a second, and then be able to consume that off of as if it all had come from one place to begin with. They wanted to measure whether or not all students have the same access and equity to higher education, whether it's based on race, ethnicity, gender, national origin, if they were a first-time student in their family, and then pull all that together. So they had plenty of data to support that, but we were able to enrich it with third-party data that maybe was socioeconomic factors based on zip code, not at the rooftop level, but zip code or MSA levels. And we did all that. We failed fast quickly. We went through a strategy with them. They didn't have a data strategy, cloud strategy in place. We went through that and aligned it with their 3-year strategic objectives for the organization, and then got use cases from that, tested a few of them, knew that it was going to work, and then we just ran it all the way through.
So, based, Wayne, on your deep expertise in the education industry, and Brad, your deep technical expertise, where do we see the education industry going? And then, how is data technology going to play a major part in that?
Where the industry is going and technology kind of intersecting is the fact that right now, as a society, we have a need for lifelong learning, and that is a place where technology can create this personalized, scalable personalization and enable universities to meet the learners where they are anytime that they need the learning. So it's no longer just an engagement with an institution for 4 years. You're going to be engaged with them for 20 years. You're going to get your degrees, but you're going to get your certifications and your upskilling, etc. And that's going to create just an amazing way for us to be able to evolve quickly on our skills and be able to close some of the gaps we have in the workplace in order to meet the demands that are currently continuing to evolve. And technology is going to be key for that. Every university needs to really figure out individually where they are. They need to figure out where they want to go and what is that tangible next step. It's a critical way to not feel overwhelmed by all the technology and trends and what is everyone else doing, because every organization has their own culture, and the people are a key part to being able to make some of these changes. And if you're taking too big of a leap or you don't really know where you are, then it could just be continuing to go forward and backwards. So it's important to really, and I think a lot of them are excited about the tools and the technology, and there's a real understanding that they can meet some of these challenges. And I think that as a community, and it's what I love working in higher ed, is everyone's supporting each other and they're collaborating with each other and they're sharing ideas and approaches, and that gives everyone the belief that they can do it. And I think everyone can do it. It's just, how do you make sure you understand where you are, where you're going, and what that next step is?
Yeah, I've got a answer to something you said about the journey, but what you just said about the community, I picked up on that in the very first session I went to. This is a community. They share information among each other across boundaries. It's not, cutthroat like a corporate world where everybody's going after the same consumer. Everybody's going after the same learners, but it's far different. This is a very open community. That was so reassuring to experience. But you made a comment, Wayne, that they have to figure out where they are, where they want to go, and what those next steps are. And I spent a lot of time at the Amazon Web Services booth with their higher education team. And that's exactly what we talked about is when we define, when someone defines what those next steps are, that we have a repeatable process in place, repeatable processes in place to help them with that initial first step so that it's not big and scary.
Thanks again, Wayne and Brad, for spending a little bit of time with me today. I really appreciate you carving that out. I look forward to continuing our conversation around the education institutions and the ed tech companies that we work with and that we can work with here at Infinitive. Do you have any last thoughts before we sign off from our viewers today?
Christina, thanks again. This is a great conversation. As you can tell, Brad and I are super excited about this, and we look forward to supporting our clients in 2023. I think is really going to be an exciting year, and we're going to see a lot of change.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. This was fantastic. I love talking about this ad nauseum, so appreciate the opportunity.